Adam, at the age of 700, calls his son Seth to his side. His voice is solemn, his eyes contain the weight of a secret that has been buried for millennia. This is not the narrative of creation that the world has been told. It's not the sanitized, simplistic story that has been fed to generations. No, this is the genuine tale, and it's nothing like what you've heard prior. Adam recalls that before he and Eve were trapped in the corporeal world, they existed as beings of pure light. They were not the first humans formed from the dust of the earth, as later customs would assert. Instead, they belonged to a higher world, an everlasting presence of knowledge and brilliance. They were heavenly, incorruptible component of a reality that transcended physical form. But suddenly something happened, something catastrophic. They were cast down, and it wasn't the Almighty God who did this. It was the inferior, being a creator who was mighty but severely defective. A being who had captured control of a part of existence and set himself up as a god. This being, Adam says, is not the true source of all things, not the greatest unfathomable God. He is an imposter, a creator, yeah, but not the ultimate creator. He fashioned the stuff, globe, but it was not out of pure divine intent. It was out of arrogance, out of a wish to govern, to dominate, to control. And so when Adam and Eve were hurled into this world, they lost their brilliance, their connection to the higher realms. They were driven into physical beings consisting of flesh and bone, susceptible to pain, suffering, and most importantly, death. The creator of this world, the one later venerated as the highest God, did not free them. He imprisoned them. Adam tells how this creator, this bogus deity, revealed himself. The only God, and commanded obedience. He put up rulers, errands, powerful supernatural creatures that ensured no one would escape his reign. The globe became a mechanism, a trap created to keep humanity blind and unaware of its true origins. Knowledge was hazardous, wisdom was the enemy. And so a deceit was born, a deceit that would stretch across millennia, that the God of this earth was the only God, that humans were formed as just servants, and that they should obey without inquiry. But Adam understands the truth. He remembers what was lost. He remembers the time before when he and Eve were not flesh-bound, not confined by the restrictions of this broken reality. And he remembers the treachery, the minute when they were tricked, when they were taught that their fault was their own blame, that they had sinned, that they had disobeyed. But what if that wasn't the example? What if eating from the tree wasn't the offense, but the first step toward retrieving their lost knowledge? What if the true crime was not rebellion, but awakening? Seth listens in silence as Adam warns him that the rulers of this world fear one thing above all: knowledge. Not the knowledge of science or civilization, but the knowledge of humanity's actual nature. The comprehension that they are more than flesh, more than transient beings born to serve. This is why religions, institutions, and governments have always demanded compliance over inquiry. Why they have rewritten history to match their story. Why they have burned books, stifled voices, and crushed those who ventured to ask too many questions. Because if people knew, if they truly known, then the system would crumble. But there is hope. Adam speaks of a prophecy of a day when humanity will remember, when the truth will break through the layers of deception. He cautions Seth that the false god will not let this knowledge to spread easily. He will dispatch his agents to destroy it, to remove it from history. But for now, Adam entrusts this knowledge to his son, because the time will come when someone, a liberator, an illuminator, will bring this truth back into the world. And when that happens, everything will. Music change. Seth listens, absorbing up every word his father speaks. But Adam isn't ended. There's more in this portion. It affects everything. Because Adam isn't just informing his youngster about the past. He's revealing the future. A future that the rulers of this world do not want anyone to know. Adam speaks of a figure, a liberator, someone who will come long after his time, someone who will challenge the false god in his system of control. He calls this figure the Illuminator, and he makes one thing very clear. This entity will not originate from the false god's kingdom. He will not be born of flesh in the way that humans have been stuck in the circle of life and death. He will not be sent by the inventor of this ruined planet. No, he will come from above, from the region that Adam and Eve were expelled from. He shall sink into this damaged world, not to dominate it, not to vanquish it, but to expose it. Adam warning that when the Illuminator arrives, the rulers of our world will panic. They will do everything in their power to quiet him, since his mere presence undermines their entire system. This universe relies on ignorance. It is held connected by deception. The instant people realize that they have been trapped, that they were never supposed to be enslaved by this fake deity, the entire structure falls. And that's why they will twist the truth about the Illuminator. They will generate false, spreading deceptive teachings. They will spread lies about who he is, why he came, and what his message actually was. And here's the startling section. Adam already knows how they'll do it. He describes with alarming accuracy how history will be rewritten, how various nations and rulers will take the story of the Illuminator and alter it to match their own agendas. He sees countless versions of the same figure emerges, each one tweaked just enough to confuse folks. Some will say he is a prophet, some will claim he is a deity, some will think he is simply a guy. But no one will be able to say what he truly is: a disruptor, a being from outside our system sent to break it apart. Adam's vision shows him that people will dispute over the intricacies of the Illuminator's life, over his name, over where he came from, over what he genuinely taught. Some will develop complete religions around him, but instead of spreading his truthful message, they will turn it into another tool of control. The same rulers who once feared him will twist his words, using them to keep humanity just as blind, just as subservient as previously. And for most folks, the truth will be buried deep beneath layers of dogma, rituals, and rewrite history. But there will be those who see via it, those who recognize the deception. Adam describes them as the generation without a king, people who do not bow to the rulers of this world, who do not accept authority blindly. These are the ones who will remember, who will look for the truth concealed beneath centuries of manipulation. And when they locate it, the false god's grasp on this earth will begin to weaken. Adam's words carry a warning. When the Illuminator comes, the world will not welcome him. The rulers will brand him a liar, a heretic, a risk to society. They will strive to eliminate him, to suppress his knowledge, and even after he is gone, they will spend centuries trying to rewrite what he truly was. But the truth will never fade fully. It shall survive in whispers, in hidden texts, in those who refuse to accept the lies. Because the false god may govern this universe, but he does not control everything. The real power, the genuine truth, comes from beyond his reach, and one day it will break through. Adam shifts in his place, his voice sinking lower. There is another secret one that very few will ever know. The birth of Seth was not average. It was not just another human child being introduced into the world. There was interference. A force from beyond this realm stepped in, and the rulers of this world, the ones who claimed to be gods, were afraid of. Adam tells that after he and Eve were thrown into the corporeal world, something was unusual. Their first two sons, Cain and Abel, were born into the system of the false god. Their destiny were already set. Cain, the violent one, was an instrument of pandemonium. Abel, the innocent one, was a victim, a pawn in the game. But when Abel was gone and Cain was cursed, something else happened. Something that shouldn't have been possible. Three weird aliens emerged, not the Archons, not the rulers of this world, but anything else. They were from the higher realm, the location Adam and Eve had been split from. They were bright beyond physical form, beyond the degradation of this earth, and they had one purpose: to ensure that at least one bloodline would carry the truth. Adam describes their presence as overwhelming. He couldn't see them properly, but he could sense them, hear them. They were not constrained by the rules of this universe. They spoke of the actual God, the one beyond the false creator. They told Adam that his line must not be lost, that the knowledge of the heavenly realm had to survive. Eve was decided to bear another son, but this time the process was different. Seth's birth was unlike any other. There was no interference from the false god, no influence from the Archons. It was pure. His spirit was not totally caught in the tangible world the way other humans were. He carried something in his very existence that the rulers of this universe couldn't touch, a direct connection to the information that had been taken from Adam and Eve. He was in a way a live link to the truth, and the rulers knew it. They witnessed it the moment he was born. They understood this was a threat. If Seth's lineage continued, there would always be those who questioned those who sought the truth, those who refused to be controlled. This wasn't just about one child. It was about preventing an entire bloodline that could one day undo everything. The false god had built. Adam explains how the Archons tried to interfere. They sent their agents, their followers, to observe Seth, to control events, to guide history in a way that would make his descendants forget who they were. They introduced diversions, disputes, systems of control, anything to drown out the truth, and for the most portion, they succeeded. Over time, the wisdom became splintered. It transformed into myths, into half-truths, into stories that were rewritten over and again to serve the ruler's agenda. Music. Adam takes a big breath. His time is running out, but there's something more, something Seth has to know. The rulers of this world, the Archons, they are not gods, they never were. They are ancient things, but they are not the true creators. They are imposters, beings that taken control of this material reality and set themselves up as divine. And the best trick they ever pulled was persuading humanity to worship them. Adam tells how these emperors came into power. Before the construction of this physical universe, there was only the higher realm, a region of pure knowledge and unadulterated existence. The genuine God, the one beyond all things, did not create in the way humans understand. There were no restrictions, no hierarchies, no rulers demanding submit. But suddenly something changed. A rogue being, an arrogant force that named itself the Creator, arose from the lower parts of existence. This entity, later identified as the Demiurge, was not omniscient. Not all-powerful, but deeply ambitious. It wanted to build something of its own, something it could govern. So it constructed this planet not out of love, not out of divine wisdom, but out of ignorance. A defective construction created by a faulty being. And to maintain control, it built a system, the hierarchy of Archons rulers, who would enforce its authority. These Archons were not angels, they were enforcers. Barriers between compassion and the truth. They ensuring that no one could escape the prison of the material world. And they feed off one thing. Obey Adam says that these rulers did not create humanity in the way people were persuaded to believe. The first people, Adam and Eve, already existed in the higher realm before they were cast down. They were duped, trapped in physical bodies, and then manipulated into thinking they were the works of the Demiurge. And from that moment on, history was twisted to keep humanity one. The kings established religions, laws, and social structures, all designed to keep people in subjugation. The Archons work through deception. They are the voices behind false prophets, the hands that shape structures of power, the ones who manipulate history to maintain control. They offer humanity just enough knowledge to function, but never enough to break free. They reward blind faith and penalize those who ask too many queries. And when individuals throughout history have endeavored to expose them, they have been silenced, labeled as heretics, outcasts, or lunatics. Adam's message to Seth is plain. The world is not what it seems. Everything people have been taught about creation regarding their place in existence has been modified. The rulers fear one thing above all, awareness. If people understand they were never meant to be slaves, if they remember the truth of their origins, the system collapses. The power of the Archons is constructed on illusion, and illusions only hold as long as no one looks too closely. But Adam warned Seth that exposing the truth comes at a price. The Archons do not tolerate disobedience. They will target those who seek knowledge, utilizing every instrument at their disposal to keep them hushed. They have controlled history for thousands of years, and they are not about to let go without a struggle. The war is not fought with firearms, but with comprehension, and the first step is seeing through the deceit. Adam's voice tightens. He understands that moment. Seth realizes the truth. There's no turning back. The rulers of this world, the Archons, have spent ages perfecting their method of control. And one of their greatest weapons, time itself, the illusion of history, the rewriting of the past, the cautious modification of documents, all meant to make sure no one ever sees the complete picture. The past is not what people think it to be. The rulers have tweaked it, reshaped it, and in several circumstances eliminated entire civilizations that pose a threat to their supremacy. Adam warned Seth that history is a battleground, and the struggle has been waged for millennia. Every empire, every religion, every legislation imposed over human existence, it all traces back to the same source. The archons penetrate human leadership, guaranteeing that only those who serve their system come to power. Those who resist, they fade. Their legacies are buried, their doctrines twisted, their names erased. Adam tells of the first generations after his exile. They were not primitive. The early descendants of Seth held information, real knowledge of the heavenly realm. They knew the rulers of this planet were imposters. They protected the mysteries of their roots. And for a time, there was hope. They built structures aligned with cosmic patterns, inscribed messages in stone, produced symbols that carried cautions for future generations. But the archons retaliated. They turned humans against each other, contaminated bloodlines, and introduced false gods to replace the truth. The early conflicts were not for land or resources. They were about control of knowledge. The enormous floods, the burning of libraries, the destruction of whole cultures, none of it was random. Each event was meticulously arranged to reset history, to wipe the slate clean, would ensure that humanity remained blind. The kings eliminated civilizations that recalled too much, replacing them with stories that matched their storyline. And every time mankind reached a point where they could recover the truth, a new calamity would strike. Wars, plagues, collapses, always ensuring that the survivors were left scurrying to rebuild with no remembrance of what came before. Even the records that survived have been tampered with. The texts that people perceive to be sacred have been rewritten by the very powers they warn against. Hidden within them are remnants of truth, although they are surrounded by distortions aimed to confuse. The archons allow people to seek information, but only within bounds they control. They encourage debate, but only between thoughts they have already tainted. They do not fear blind belief. They fear the ones who look beyond what has been offered to them. Adam's warning to Seth is obvious. Time is the biggest deceit of all. What people call history is a deliberately created illusion, a succession of controlled restarts to protect them from ever understanding who they truly are. The rulers know that humanity is capable of breaking free, and they will do anything to prevent it. The past is not lost, but it has been hidden, and those who seek it must be prepared to fight the forces that have spent eons trying to keep it hidden. Adam's voice gets urgent. He knows that what is about to reveal is hazardous knowledge, something the rulers of this earth have spent millennia trying to bury. He informs Seth that humanity was never designed to be enslaved in this physical world. The prison of flesh, the cycle of birth and death, the constant torment are designed to trap human souls, to keep them from remembering what they truly are. The false god, the demiurge, and his errands built this world not as an act of heavenly love, but as an act of confinement. The human soul was never supposed to be here. It belongs to the higher world, the place beyond substance, beyond time. But the kings needed energy, control, and obedience. They needed adoration. So they devised the greatest deceit, convincing humanity that this world is all there is, that the only escape is via obedience, servitude, and the acceptance of pain. Adam tells Seth that every human carries a piece of the divine, a spark from the higher world that the rulers cannot fully suppress. This is what makes humans unique, but it's also what makes them targets. The rulers designed the physical globe to be a distraction filled with infinite cycles of strife, conflict, and temptation. They keep humanity focused on survival, on minor desires, on arbitrary distinctions, so that no one ever has the time or the insight to see the truth. The biggest trick the rulers ever performed was making humanity believe the physical body is all that existence. They twisted the very idea of the soul, turning it into something hazy, something related to their ways of control. They created doctrines that encourage individuals to fear punishment, to seek redemption only through the institutions they control. But Adam produces one thing obvious. These rulers are not the genuine judges of human souls. They have no power beyond this world. Their authority is a lie. He tells Seth that when a person dies, the rulers are waiting. They appear as beings of light, as divine figures, as familiar voices. They strive to lure the soul back into their system, convincing it to reincarnate, to return to the cycle of control. They delete memory, reset identities, and send souls back into fresh bodies, guaranteeing that humankind never recognizes it's imprisoned. This is why people are born without memory of their past lives. The method is designed to keep them ignorant, but there is a way out. Adam teaches Seth that those who recognize the illusion can become free. The rulers rely on fraud, on luring spirits into surrender. But if a soul sees through the illusion, if it refuses to obey, refuses to be lured back into the loop, it can escape. It can return to the higher place beyond the reach of the false god. Adam leans in, lowering his voice. What he's about to say is something almost no one knows, something the rulers have wiped from history. The Archons were never invincible. There was a period when humanity fought back, when certain individuals broke through the deception and challenged their control. These weren't only rebels or philosophers challenging authority. These were people who had seen through the illusion entirely. They recognized the nature of the prison. They knew how the rulers worked, and they developed ways to resist. Some of these individuals disappeared without a trace. Others were converted into myths, their real stories twisted. Beyond recognition, the rulers couldn't allow humanity to know that escape was conceivable. So they rewrote history, branding these folks as madmen, sorcerers, or dangerous heretics. They made sure their instructions were either lost or twisted into something that strengthened the very system they were trying to ruin. But Adam remembers. He tells of a time before the full lockdown, before the overlords had refined their tactics of control. There were ancient cultures that held the knowledge of escape. Not simply pieces, not merely hidden messages in text, but genuine strategies of breaking away from the Arcan's effect. They erected structures linked with cosmic forces, areas where the barriers between this world and the higher realm were slimmer. They comprehended the actual essence of the human soul, and they passed this wisdom on carefully, covertly to those who were ready. The rulers reacted with force. Entire cultures were wiped out, their towns engulfed by the earth, their teachings scorched. They created new belief systems to replace the lost ones, systems that preserved obedience instead of liberation. But vestiges remained, symbols engraved into stone, prohibited texts concealed in secret archives, oral traditions passed along by generations. Despite the risks, if one looks attentively, the proof is still there. Adam tells Seth that these ancient resistances weren't just spiritual. They were direct clashes with the rulers themselves. There were those who had learned how to see the Archons, how to distinguish their effect, and even how to lessen them. The rulers rely on deception, on humanity's ignorance. But when they are exposed, when their presence is recognized and their tricks no longer work, they lose their strength. There were moments in history when someone attained this on a huge scale. Brief seconds when the rulers' control slipped, but each time they retaliated, resetting civilization, altering history, making ensuring no one remembered what had happened. Adam stares at Seth with intensity. There is something else, something far more harmful than the rulers themselves. The Archons, the false god, the system of control, this are merely part of the calculation. The real reason the rulers are so desperate to keep humanity trapped is due of what happens when a soul truly breaks free. There is something outside their reach, something they fear more than rebellion, more than knowledge, more than anything. Adam speaks of the others, beings who were never part of the Arcan's deception, never bound by the prison of substance. They exist outside the system, beyond the deceptive layers of reality the rulers have constructed. These entities do not control, do not demand adoration, do not seek power, but they watch. They wait. They know what has been done to humanity, and they know that eventually some will flee. The rulers have spent ages seeking to sever humanity's relation to them. Every doctrine, every altered text, every deformation of history has been constructed to obliterate their existence from memory. Well, because when a soul recalls, when it actually wakes up, it can reach out to them. And when that happens, the rulers lose their grasp. This reason why various individuals throughout history have perished without explanation. Not because they were killed, not because they failed, But because they triumphed, they broke free, and the rulers had no authority to stop them. The others have left messages, not in the text controlled by the rulers, not in the organizations meant to mislead, but in the regions the rulers cannot access. In dreams and visions in the spaces between life and death, when the illusions of the physical world start to break down, those are sincerely seeking will find them not by blind belief, not through following another system of control, but through direct experience. The rulers know this, and they fear it more than anything. Adam cautions Seth that once this understanding is recognized, there is no turning back. The rulers will try to repress it, they will attack, manipulate, and deceive, but they cannot erase the truth fully. The others are watching. They have always been watching, and they are waiting for those who are ready to see